This year's NBA trade deadline has to be one of the craziest deadlines I've ever experienced in my life. We saw multiple superstar players get traded away, like Kevin Durant to the Phoenix Suns and Kyrie Irving to the Dallas Mavericks. But even besides that, there were a bunch of other different trades that went down, and this year's deadline overall was just crazy. And in this video, we're going to be breaking down the winners and losers of this year's deadline. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy Sports. I make opinionated NBA content. And if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. NBA trade deadlines are typically an exciting time. It's a time where teams decide whether they want to go all in and make a run for the playoffs, or they want to trade away a bunch of different players and go in the direction of a rebuild. And typically during a normal deadline, we see a bunch of different supplementary guys get moved, maybe some decent bench players, maybe some decent level starting players, maybe you get one all-star level player getting traded during the deadline, but typically it's more so supplementary guys that get moved during the trade deadline. But this year it was completely different. We saw significant stars getting moved like Kevin Durant, who's arguably one of, if not the best players in the NBA. Also a guy in Kyrie Irving who's an extremely talented player, alongside with some other guys getting moved as well. But in this video, we're going to talk about some of the winners and losers of the NBA trade deadline. So first, let's start with the winners. I think the clear and most obvious winner is the Phoenix Suns. The Suns were able to acquire Kevin Durant, who's an absolute superstar, and they were able to add a player of the caliber of KD to a team that was already very talented and very good. They already have Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton, so to add a player like Kevin Durant to this roster just makes him so dangerous and a legitimate super team. The Suns needed to give away some valuable depth that they had, especially at the wing position, but at the end of the day, when you have an opportunity to bring in a guy like Kevin Durant, or really any superstar of that matter, you always have to do that 10 times out of 10. So the Phoenix Suns definitely smashed this trade right out of the park. It was a great move for them. They did have to give away 4 unprotected first-round picks, but at the end of the day, if you're able to win a championship with the addition of Kevin Durant, it instantly becomes worth it. And at this point, I would say the Phoenix Suns should be, and in my opinion are, championship favorites. If they don't win the championship, it certainly would be a disappointment this season. Now, you do have Kevin Durant locked up for a couple more seasons, so you certainly do have some time, but I certainly think the Suns should win right away this season. And due to that fact, I think they're clear winners. Now, the next winner that I wanted to touch upon is the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, going into the season, and especially midway through the season this year, the Lakers just weren't all that good, and they didn't have all that much flexibility. They didn't have all that many draft picks going forward, they didn't have a lot of players that were able to be traded, and overall, it just seemed like they were in a really bad situation. But during this year's trade deadline, they were able to make a couple of moves that I really liked, and I think they got steals with. They were able to acquire Rui Hachimura, who has been okay in the NBA, I would say, but he is a young guy with potential, and he does play that power forward position, so it gives you some more insurance if Anthony Davis gets hurt once again. But the real move that I liked, and the reason why I'm putting them in the winners category, is due to the D'Angelo Russell deal. They were able to get rid of Russell Westbrook, who obviously just wasn't working out in LA. He wasn't fitting in nicely with LeBron James, and when you look at their styles, it's pretty clear why. Both of these guys need the ball in their hands basically at all times to be effective, so it was never really going to be a great fit between the two. But even besides that, he was extremely inefficient, and overall he just wasn't a good fit with the Lakers. So I think just due to the fact that they were able to move on from Westbrook, that's a win within itself, but also when you consider they were able to bring in D'Angelo Russell, that's a complete win for the Lakers. Now, D'Lo has certainly been a guy who's seen better days in the past. His career has certainly been declining as of late, but I do think he can have a resurgence in LA. I think he's basically the perfect point guard you want to put alongside a guy in LeBron James, because he's a guy who can play off ball and be pretty effective as well. He's shown the ability to hit that catch and shoot 3-point jump shot at a pretty high level, and when you play with LeBron James, that's extremely valuable. But also when LeBron comes out of the game, D'Lo still has that ball handling ability and that great passing and playmaking ability to really run an offense when LeBron's not out there. And now you have the capability to mismatch those two guys' minutes, and you could be effective for 48 minutes. But even besides D'Lo, when you look at the other two players the Lakers were able to acquire, they're actually very good talented players as well. The main player that I want to touch upon upon is Malik Beasley. He's a guy who's extremely effective scoring wise. He can score from that 3-point range, from that mid-range, and even driving all the way to the basket. Basically, Malik is one of those guys that's just an absolute bucket coming off the bench. You can also start him, of course, as well, but I think on this Lakers roster, he's most likely going to come off the bench. And having that scoring punch coming off the bench is extremely important. When you look at a lot of the better teams in the NBA, a lot of teams have that kind of guy, and now the Lakers just added one. And even Jared Vanderbilt is a pretty good role player that the Lakers could put alongside LeBron James, D'Angelo Russell, and some other guys as well. And overall, I just really love what the Lakers were able to do at the deadline. They were a team that really turned things around significantly. But now, let's get into the losers. So clearly the main loser of this year's trade deadline has to be the Brooklyn Nets. They were a team a couple seasons ago who had 3 legitimate superstars in Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. And although they had all the talent in the world on their roster, they were only in the end able to win 1 playoff series. That's it. And that within itself is an ultimate failure. But the fact that slightly after that, James Harden requested a trade out, then Kevin Durant, then Kyrie Irving also requested trades out of Brooklyn, and now all 3 of those guys are gone, it just seems like it was a terrible situation in Brooklyn. Now in my opinion, I think everybody looks bad. I think the Brooklyn Nets look bad, I think Kyrie especially looks bad, James Harden, and even Kevin Durant. It just wasn't a good situation from top to bottom. When you have talent like that on your roster, you have to win a championship, at least one. And the fact that they weren't even able to make it out of the second round is kind of crazy. So solely due to that fact, this was a major failure. But the reason why I'm listing them as major losers of this year's deadline is due to the fact that they officially lost all 3 of their main guys. They certainly did get some nice players in return, especially for the Kevin Durant deal, as they got 4 unprotected first-round picks, which is great, but it certainly isn't a good situation considering they could have won an NBA championship this year or last year or the season prior. Now going forward long term, I do think the Nets have some good prospects. As I mentioned, they have a ton of draft picks going forward, so there certainly is some hope going forward. It's just at this point, it's not the greatest situation. But the last loser that I wanted to touch upon is the Chicago Bulls. Now the Bulls didn't make all that many trades, but that's part of the problem. When you look at the Bulls on the season, they have a 26-29 record and are the 9th seed in the East. And although there is still a lot of time left in the season to turn things around, I just don't think they're in a good position at this point. So I think the fact that they didn't trade away their major guys like Zach LaVine or some other players was a significant mistake. I think the best thing for the Bulls at this point would just be to blow things up, get as many draft picks as you possibly can, and just restart, because it's pretty clear things aren't working out. But although there were some rumors of Zach LaVine maybe getting traded to the New York Knicks, nothing ended up panning out, and the Chicago Bulls basically just stayed pat, which in my opinion makes them a loser of this year's deadline. But overall, this year's trade deadline was extremely exciting. There was a ton of trades that went back and forth between teams, and I was just extremely entertained by this trade deadline. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree with my winners and losers of this year's deadline, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these 2 videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.